does. It's a self-confidence thing too, in that the best way to learn something is to teach it. And sometimes when you're teaching or speaking, doing the public speaking, you are kind of teaching a mini lesson on whatever aspect you're talking about. You realise you do actually know your stuff. You remind yourself that you do know your stuff. And we all have that moment where you're just going to meet a new client. You have that little bit of it's whether that's imposter syndrome that sets in or whatever it is, but you get into the meeting and you go, yeah, I do know what I'm talking about, and then you remember that the client doesn't know anything about this stuff. That's the public speaking. If you're speaking to a consumer audience like you would be at the home shows, they're there to get information from you, and when you start speaking, you realise that you do know this stuff, and sharing it, or you like sharing it, and it's a great way to make connections with potential clients, but also position yourself as someone who knows what they're talking about.
Hi, I'm Beth Beesky, the founder of More Time to Design and your host of the Design Dialogues podcast. I've been a designer for the last 12 years and I've run my own studio for 5, and I know how hard it is to run a successful business. You not only need to be great at designing, but you need to be great at all the other things as well. I created More Time to Design, a software platform to help designers run efficient studios, and I've created the Design Dialogue podcast to help us all learn together. Each week, we will meet professionals who are at the top of their game doing things that help us run our studios. We'll have conversations with social media managers, interior design mentors, copywriters, stylists, photographers, suppliers, and also designers who have been in the game for a long time and who have such a wealth of knowledge to share. I hope that each week you feel inspired and informed at the end of each of our design dialogues. So join me for the Design Dialogue podcast. Hi everyone, just before we start today's episode with Selina from KBDI, I wanted to let you know that registrations for the KBDI conference down in Melbourne on the 16th and 17th of August, registrations close this Friday, the 19th of July. For those of you who don't know what the program is, it is 2 days of absolute just design inspiration. On the Friday, there is the Trade Expo, where it's a great opportunity to meet suppliers and learn about their products, as well as listening to 4 amazing speakers. There is Therese Talenton, who is talking about building successful brand collaborations. Patricia Callan, who is talking about her new book, The Mid-Century Modern Home. Then the wonderful Jen Bishop from The Interiors Addict, and finishing off the day with the powerhouse of Andrew Mitchell, who is, of course, the design coach. So if you are interested in heading along, make sure you follow the links in our bio, in the information on the podcast, to the webpage to book. And it's a great day. As you'll hear Selina and me chat, the KBDI family is just a lovely, lovely group of people. So even if you are not a member, but you really want to just immerse yourself in some great design talk, I would love for you to come along. I will be there. There's drinks on the Friday night, which is always fun, and it's a great opportunity to meet other designers and build those relationships in the industry. So let's get into today's episode. Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Design Dialogues podcast. This week I am joined by Selina Zwolsman from KBDI. Hi Selina, how are you?
Hi Beth, I'm really well, thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So I always love to start by finding out, what can you see out your window today?
Oh, okay, we're in Brisbane. I'm in Brisbane, and today it's actually a very cloudy, overcast day. The cool weather is part of the reason that I'm speaking like this. I've got a bit of a cold, so apologies to anyone who has to listen to this nasal voice. But yeah, look, I've got some pretty little flowers bursting on a shrub outside, so it's not too bad.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. So I would love to know, and for everyone who doesn't know, what is KBDI?
Right, KBDI is the Kitchen and Bathroom Designers Institute. So as the name would suggest, it's an industry organisation for people who are invested and interested in kitchens and bathrooms. So our membership consists of interior designers, interior decorators, kitchen manufacturers, builders, We've got some plumbers who do bathroom, obviously the full scope of bathroom renovations. We've got suppliers to the industry with a focus on those zones, so appliances, handles, that kind of thing. And then, of course, we're supported by our partners. So we've got a long list of corporate partners there who help us to subsidise the cost of membership and support us with various events that we do.
Yeah, awesome. So, and tell me a little bit about your role. So you are the design and communication manager. It is a small but mighty team up in Brisbane with KBDI.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about your role and how you came to working with them.
Okay, well, I can take you way back in the history of KBDI. The organisation was started by a gentleman by the name of Alex Milne and a couple of other long-term members of ours. I met Alex when I was doing my HIA certification for kitchen design. So Alex was an HIA trainer, and KBDI was just kind of kicking off under the umbrella of HIA in a little way. We were in their office. And then I did my certification. I can tell you how long ago this was. We were actually making models of the kitchens that we were designing. That was part of
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it was hand drawing, it was model making, and I was pregnant, I think, with my first child, who's now 21. So that's how long ago I can take you back on the KBDI journey. So KBDI kind of grew. Alex reached out to me a couple of years later to join the chapter committee in Queensland. So again, we were very small. We had a stronger cohort in Victoria. We had growing branches in New South Wales and Queensland, in South Australia too, I think. And I guess back then it was probably more for cabinet makers. So a lot of our members were cabinet makers who really had an interest in designing the kitchens the right way. They wanted to do better. They wanted to learn more. And so we were developing resources to help them with that. So different training materials and that, those kind of resources, and introducing them, to different trends in colours and all of the things that come along with it. Increasingly, we got designers on board who had studied various levels of interior design. So it might have been a diploma or a bachelor in interior design, but they didn't really feel confident in those kitchen and bathroom specific areas because they are the most intense as far as, well, not the most, but they're very intense as far as knowing Australian standards.
They're so technical.
They're very technical, yeah.
This is what a lot of designers don't fully appreciate. And I think as well, and I say this so often when it comes to these conversations, design school is great, and whether that's university, private college, whatever kind of form that takes, but so often it really just gets you to the front door. It doesn't really give you the skills to know exactly how to put together a bathroom.
No, it doesn't.
Or how to put together a kitchen.
No. Well, the reason that I was doing the training originally, the HIA certification in kitchen design, is I worked for an architect, and they just basically allocated a space for the kitchen and bathroom and ensuite, and that was it. And so I was kind of like, well, what about the detail? And it was really interesting, the more involved I got with KBDI, is to see where cabinet makers were also frustrated by this lack of knowledge, because they'd be given a set of plans to price, and it was, it just was totally insufficient as far as quoting the construction of a kitchen. So particularly, if you're looking at a grand scale house with high expectations for the kitchen, which is the heart of the home, or the bathroom, which people are going to be using every single day, and they're all value adding spaces, obviously, they needed more detail to be able to quote these. So it became a really nice synergy for the organisation just to bring the two together. So, and a big part of my philosophy, I suppose, was not trying to pit one against the other, because it was very much, there's tradies versus designers, and but it's like, well, we're actually all working together here, so it would be better if we're all on the same page. And that is how the training really started, is getting everybody on that same page for these spaces. So,
and it's so crucial. Like, I actually know a couple of designers who have gone back and done more detailed training purely around kitchens and bathrooms because they are so technical. And if you get it wrong, it's really obvious and it's really expensive to fix.
Yeah.
And so the organisation, like as you kind of briefly touched on, there's chapters around Australia, and you hold events regularly for the designers that are part of the organisation and also designers that are outside. And one of the things that I love about the events is there is a real focus on education and support. And I feel like they're kind of two of the big pillars of how KBDI helps designers. You know, there's that education through materiality and all of that kind of stuff, but then also just support for designers.
We have really made that a focus. So we use 4 pillars for all of our events and the content that we produce. So KBDI is also knowledge, business, design and inspiration. So whenever we're organising an event, we try to make sure we're ticking those boxes. People come to us for different reasons. Some people have, they're all over the design. They're very confident with what they're doing design-wise, but they need more business know-how. Or they might need a little bit of knowledge in a particular, like for instance with the livable housing guidelines coming up, so they're not quite au fait with that. They want some help there. So other people are more into that, but they need some design inspiration, or they're coming back into design. So we're really trying to make sure we tick the 4 boxes of those 4 pillars for our events when we can.
And the majority of your designers are either kind of solo practitioners or they might be working in smaller studios. Is that kind of...
Yeah, that's fair. Yep. So some of the bigger business members, so we have different levels of membership, an individual designer membership, then we have a business membership. And quite often the business members, not all of them, but most of our business members are kitchen manufacturers. So they've got teams of designers. So it's beneficial for them to come on board as the business, and then they send their design team with us. But mostly we are solo entrepreneurs or small studios for sure.
Yeah, and look, I've been to several kind of KBDI events, and the thing that is so overwhelming from all of them is just, it's kind of like stepping into a warm hug. Like there's just so much support in the room, and it's just really lovely. I think, especially for designers who work by themselves, maybe in a home office, having that camaraderie and support around them is clearly really important.
That's great feedback. Thank you. I'm glad you feel that way. I think it's an important part of the networking at events. So sometimes we look at the word networking and we think, well, it's not really an opportunity. We often associate networking with that's where you're going to get business. So we all know the local business networking events and that those models. I guess we're not necessarily that, because you're not going to get new clients, you're not going to meet clients there, but you're going to meet the suppliers and the representatives. But we also try to encourage people to look sideways as well, because sometimes we need those people to be able to refer jobs to. So whether you're really fortunate and you're really busy, you just can't take another job, if you've got a trusted peer, colleague, that you regularly catch up with at these events, and you've got someone's card to hand over or a connection to make, it makes you saying no a little bit easier. And then we've got members with different strengths and weaknesses. So myself, I have never really been a fan of soft furnishings. I'm actually starting to like it now. I always wanted to have a network of people who were happy to take on the soft furnishings. So I like the hard finishes and the design of kitchens and bathrooms. And then when it came to, and then, you're in the client's home and they like what you're doing, and can you do this as well? Can you help us finish off on the master suite? That's when I'd say, look, I've got this great person that I work with. She's also a member of the KBDI. Let me introduce you to her, and you connect her and hand that one off to someone who's really good at that and loves to do that. So, and it goes the other way. We've got members who come to us who really do love the soft furnishings, but they're coming to us generally thinking they'd like to learn more about kitchens and bathrooms, but often finding ways that they can work with designers to not necessarily have to know it all, but hand it over to someone that they can work alongside of. So that community building is very, very important to us, and something we try hard we always allow time for networking at these events for that reason.
Yeah, and it's you do it very well, kind of thing. So I can definitely see that kind of cross-pollination, and just like it's really, it all works very well.
It also takes away that feeling of being in a room with competitors, and I can tell you now too, going back to the history, it used to be a little bit like that. You'd feel like you're in a room with all these people who may be quoting on the same jobs as you, or might have the same client base, and I think that's been one of the really beautiful things to watch grow. We don't have that anymore. That there's not that kind of, you just don't feel that vibe in the room ever, that someone could be not your enemy, but they're your competitor.
It's so interesting you say that, because I was having a discussion with a designer, and it's going to come out in an episode in a couple of weeks, where they had been in the industry for 15 years, and they had seen such an evolution of the way the industry, especially at this end where it's like solo designers or small studios, they are like the opening up and just almost the complete shift in how people feel about there's enough work for everyone, we're stronger together, and she was just reflecting on how lovely it is. And I think it's just so interesting that you're kind of reflecting on the same thing, which I think is just a real sign of the maturity of our industry.
That's so true, yeah. And it's a mindset thing for any business owners out there. If you have that growth mindset, it's life will always be a little bit easier, because there really is enough work out there for all of us, or for the right people, especially I think in interior design. So we've all had that first client meeting where you just know you're not going to be the right person for this client, or they're not the right person for you. It's human nature, and it is a real relationship kind of industry, isn't it? You really do become involved with this person. You're designing their home, so you need to have a good relationship with them. So that's fine. We don't always like all the people that we're with, or it's not that we don't like them, but they're not necessarily someone that we are gelling with, or whatever it is. So they might be perfect for the person next door. So
exactly,
we've got having that growth mindset, and just reminding yourself that there is enough work, and you get the right people for you. It's a nicer way to try and do business.
Yeah, definitely. So for everyone who's listening who doesn't know, so More Time to Design is a collaborating partner with KBDI, and we offer a 20% discount to all of the KBDI members of MTTD. We had such an interesting kind of pathway to get to that. We've been working together for about a year now, and it was really interesting seeing how, like, when so I first approached KBDI, and you guys kind of almost didn't know what to do with me at first. They were like, where exactly does this fit? But then one of the things that you like KBDI is really about supporting designers in really practical ways, and that's how we kind of landed on where we did with you guys really saw how More Time to Design could benefit designers in their business. And so when, like, some of the other things that you guys offer as part of your membership is a discounted like an insurance package, which I just think is so wonderful, because that's one of those things where designers are like, I know I need it, but where do I even start, and what should I be included? I know that so often, you see it in the Facebook groups, people are talking about insurances, and half the time they don't even know what kind of insurance they need. What is some of the other benefits that membership brings to the designers?
Okay, well, the insurance is a huge one, and it is really important. So it has been very much an educational thing as well. Basically, just a quick recap on the insurance for those who don't know about our policy. We've got a PI and PL insurance policy, a group policy. So PI insurance is professional indemnity insurance, and if you are offering advice in your job, you need to have professional indemnity insurance. So you think about everything we're doing as designers, we're advising the clients on the finishes, the products. We get it reviewed every year, so it complies with ACCC requirements for consumer law. And we do refine it too based on the feedback of members. We try to really make sure it's appropriate for the way members practice. That's another really valuable benefit. One of the other benefits that we have is our relationship with Sprint Law. So Sprint Law is a legal firm that is one of the front runners in this new kind of legal advice, legal services. So really streamlined, super efficient. I really love working with them over the last few years. What we've done together is develop a design consultancy agreement. So this is free for all members to use, all designer members to use. And it's tailor-made for our industry. It's got a lot of terms and conditions, which a lot of designers kind of freak out about because they're worried the client's going to freak out about, but they're really important terms and conditions that are going to help protect you. And if you pitch that the right way to the client as well, you see it really helps protect them. So particularly with a consumer law, Australian consumer law is very much in favour of the consumer, and with our annual reviews, we make sure that we're meeting the ACCC requirements. So it's in your client's benefit as well as your benefit to have these contracts in place.
I think that's so just to touch on that, Selina, I think that is, I think all the benefits are wonderful, and obviously I think the more time to design benefit is super wonderful. But I actually think that one in particular is so important, because so often, especially with people are starting out in their studios, the thought of going to a lawyer to get contracts and terms and conditions drawn up, one, they most probably don't know what they're even asking for. Mm-hmm. And finding a lawyer that understands our industry is really important. Mm. And as you said, like things around consumer law and just so many parts that kind of affect our industry that I don't think people always think of. And so I think having that benefit where, one, the law firm knows our industry, so it's crucial. But also, you're not going to be having to sitting watching the clock going, oh my God, another 5 minutes has gone past. Like, how much is that chart costing me?
Yeah.
Because I think so often it is a thing that new designers go, I know I need it, but one, it's really expensive and I just feel overwhelmed about it. I'm just going to stick my head in the sand.
Yeah.
And that, oh gosh, like it's going to frighten off clients. I think it actually speaks a lot to... I know for sure designers that go in with a mindset of this is a business, this is not a hobby, this is, I need to be set up properly from the start. They are the designers who are successful long term, like 100 times over. Mm. And so I think that is actually one of like the best benefits that comes from KBDI, because it just removes that hesitation around getting what is arguably the most important documents you have in your business.
Absolutely. And you are spot on. It's a difficult industry in that it's a fun industry. So, and it is something people take on as a hobby. People think that they love interior design and they see it as a hobby. And quite often, that's not to dismiss that leads into having a career, but you do have to have that business mindset. So that's why you'll see a lot of the member benefits that we talk about are resources that will help you in business. Because you can be the greatest designer in the world, but if you can't manage the back end of it, you're not going to be there for long. Or you're just doing a hobby. You might as well just make it a hobby.
Yeah, so, exactly. And that is definitely something, as I've worked alongside more time with KBDI, more time to design is really systems and processes in a box for designers. I know so many amazingly talented designers that their back end, their back of office is just an absolute shambles because they've got no clue about how to run a business. Mm-hmm. And that's not a criticism of them. It's something that we are not taught at design school. If it's a second career or a third career, you might have come from like a marketing background. So you've got amazing marketing skills, but you've got zero idea of how to run a business. And so I think that suite of like understanding that a lot of the support and benefits to KBDI is actually really helping you build a better business.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a little bit of selfishness there. It's in our best interest to have members who are good business people, because we want our members to be around for a long time in business and doing well. So there's a really good incentive for us to help our members become better business people.
Yeah. And tell me some of the lovely things that you see. Like, is there someone that comes to mind who you've kind of, they've come to KBDI and they're kind of like, was like a little fledgling designer, and you've really seen their career and studio just absolutely flourish?
Oh gosh, so many. Where would I start? Are we naming names?
Yeah, let's name names.
Helen Bowman is a New South Wales designer. She was a KBDI accredited designer of the year in 2022. What year are we in? 24. Last year was Rena Cohen. I'll talk about Rena too. Helen, I actually taught Helen way back when I was teaching kitchen and bathroom design, and she'd come from a design discipline. She did commercial. She did studio design, so did design sets for ABC and all that kind of thing. So she had this great conceptual knowledge about design, and then she needed that really fundamental kitchen and bathroom. I mean, the set studio. Who wouldn't want to design sets? I mean, what an awesome job. Yeah. But when you come to do a kitchen, you obviously have to think about the plumbing and the electrical work and all these other things that you don't have to think about in a children's set. So Helen was great. She was just a sponge. She's to me, she's a really fantastic example of a KBDI member who has grown with us, I think, and taken advantage of everything that we have to offer. So she's got a really, I've always seen her build relationships at the various conferences throughout the year. I know she's working with one of our members in a kind of the relationship I was talking about before, where some have strengths in some areas, some others in other areas, and they've managed to come together in this kind of design partnership, which with still independent. So it's just a beautiful, beautiful example, and she's an incredible designer. She does some beautiful work. Darren and Simona from Minosa, again, I was teaching them way back in the day, so they've got a fantastic backstory into how they got into design and into the industry, and into where they are now. So we've seen them grow from a really small operation to the big design team solid design team that they've got now. So I did have a member email me the other day she wanted to know how long she'd been with KBDI for. I'm not sure whatever reason she was doing. She was maybe applying for accreditation. She needed to make a note. And I would look back in her file, and she'd been a member for 7 years. And I was thinking, we really are very lucky. We have these long-standing memberships that go back right to the beginning. Rena Cohen, that I mentioned earlier, she was the 2023 Australian Accredited Designer of the Year. Rena's been fantastic. She stood on the board for a little while. And that's another thing with KBDI to remember too. We have, because of the structure of the organisation, we have our chapters and then the board as well. So the chapter, like the state representative, the chapter committees are the state representatives of each cohort. So in New South Wales, we've got our New South Wales chapter committee, and they kind of are the conduit between the general membership and the office. So they can, if you're at an event, you have any feedback that you want to get back to the office, you can speak to the committee members and they can take that to us. And then we've got members who transgress from the chapter committees into board positions, which is another great thing. It's kind of like a bit of a milestone. I think generally people, not at the end of their career necessarily, but a different stage of their business where they're ready to put more time back into industry. They may have built a really good team underneath them or with them who are taking on some of the work, and they can put more time into industry. So we have that. We're, as you said before, we are a small team at KBDI, but we do have, well, obviously I've been in the industry for a long time. Greg was a cabinet maker. He's great from that. He's bringing that perspective. He owned a cabinet making business, I should say. He wasn't a cabinet maker, but he's always bringing along the trade perspective on things, whereas I'm kind of more the designer. And then we've got our chapter committees and our board who are always making sure we're all keeping in touch, keeping up to date with the industry and where things are at and how business has changed. And it really has changed. The way we do work has changed a lot in my time at KBDI, for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's something that's really interesting. Like, I think seeing almost the possibilities of leadership and developing those skills, which I think when you work by yourself, there's not necessarily those opportunities to do that. And I think as business owners, that's really important.
Can I jump
that
in on that one too with opportunities? Because something else that we do try to do. So I've got people are constantly getting emails from me about speaking at the home show or speaking at trade shows. So we can offer members that platform as well. So a lot of members are not necessarily, I wouldn't say they want to be influencers, but they're looking for opportunities to position themselves as industry experts, and public speaking is a great way to do that. So we've been able to get lots of members on the stage for the first time, and then they really get, they either hate it and don't come back to it, or they love it and want to keep coming back all the time. And it's mostly the latter.
Yeah. And
It's
I think that's really interesting because I think that is something that, as you said, like not everyone wants to be like an influencer, but I think that really helps gain more clients. Like it's just showing your authority that you know what you're talking about, kind of thing. Like that really does help.
It does. It's a self-confidence thing too, in that the best way to learn something is a teacher. And sometimes when you're teaching or speaking, doing the public speaking, you are kind of teaching a mini lesson on whatever aspect you're talking about. You realize you do actually know your stuff. You remind yourself that you do know your stuff. And we all have that moment where you're just going to meet a new client. You have that little bit of it's whether that's imposter syndrome that sets in or whatever it is. But you get into the meeting and you go, yeah, I do know what I'm talking about. And then you remember that the client doesn't know anything about this stuff. That's why they're engaging you. And that's the public speaking. If you're speaking to a consumer audience like you would be at the home shows, they're there to get information from you. And when you start speaking, you realize that, you do know this stuff and you're good at sharing it, or you like sharing it. And it's a great way to make connections with potential clients, but also position yourself as someone who knows what they're talking about.
Yeah. And then, oh my goodness, the number of times I've spoken to, designers, and they do not fully appreciate how much knowledge they have and how much little knowledge their clients or potential clients have.
Mm-hmm.
And just, I think, remembering that, or as you say, like having a way of highlighting that, even if it's just to yourself, is crucial.
Yeah. It's really helpful when you go into those client meetings. It's really helpful if you're reminding yourself that you do know what you're talking about.
Exactly. So, tell me, how would someone join up to KBDI if they've listened to this and they're like, oh my goodness, I want to be part of that very fun game?
Okay, well, obviously just go to our website, kbdi.org.au. Now you're going to catch me out here because I haven't had a lot of time looking at the new website, but there'll be something really obvious there about how to join or about KBDI. There's a phone number there on the website. Don't hesitate to pick up the phone and give us a call. So we've got a team of staff who are always willing to talk to people and explain what we do. If you don't want to, if you need more questions than what you're getting answered from the website, hopefully you'll get all the answers you need. And also we would love to, if we've got some events coming up, I'm not sure, we might have, we've got a conference coming up, but I'm not sure when this one goes to air. The conference is our biggest event on the national calendar, national conference being held in Melbourne this year. We've got 2 days of sessions planned up, a Friday full of people speaking about the kind of stuff we've been talking about here. You'll find the outline of that conference on our website. If it's a local chapter event that you're interested in, get in touch with us. If we can get you along as a special guest to one of those events so you can see what we're about, we'd love to do that.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, just before, you've mentioned it a few times, the new website. And part of that new website is, we were talking before about part of it is, it's almost like the Facebook groups that we're all part of, where you see designers kind of asking for advice, but it's in a more secure location, and it's also kind of going to be a source of real information that is industry and fact-based, kind of like responses will be kind of thing. Like that's a really kind of new thing for the KBDI, isn't it?
It is a new thing. So I think I've used the word community a couple of times in this conversation. So community is really important to us. And what our new website offers is an online community that is, like you say, it's kind of similar to Facebook in that you'll have a profile. All our members already have their profiles up there, and you can hop in and have conversations about topics that are relevant to you. And what we're making sure is that you're getting the right information, the right answers to those questions. So not someone's, maybe misdirected interpretation of a regulation. But we'll make sure that you've got the right resources, that you can have conversations. You don't have to worry about clients seeing them or people, different people that are outside of your circle that you don't want to hear. There is no dumb question. First of all, we always say that. Exactly. There's no stupid question. But sometimes you've got to be in the right community to feel safe to ask that question. So that's what this platform is going to be. And of course, it will hold all of the resources that we develop for members. So all of the technical bulletins that our members like, the contracts we've spoken about, all of that information is held within this community. So you can just log in, get in at any time of night that you're working. If you like to work, we'll say we'll pretend like it's a choice. If you like to work at really odd hours at night, you can get in there and get the resources you need. And
I think that's really kind of like, there's so many changes coming in with new legislation in all different states. I think that now more than ever, that is such an important tool for us to have in our toolboxes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is, yeah, it is definitely more than ever. In each state is different. So what rules apply to one state? And we've had this in the Facebook group over the years too. People, well-meaning people, members come in to try and answer a question or to answer a question, but they're talking about the legislation in their state, and it's different for the person who's asking the question. So it's not like we're not going to be controlling conversations or anything like that, but it just means that we're pointing people right to the resources that they need to go to give them the most correct information for their particular cause.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Selina, I've loved chatting and learning a bit more about KBDI. As I said, I have been involved with KBDI, with Selina and Greg and the team up there for about a year, as we've been working with this great offering for More Time to Design for all the KBDI members. And I just cannot speak highly enough of everyone. It is such a beautiful organisation, and I encourage everyone to find out a little bit more about it.
Thank you so much for your time, Beth, and I encourage anyone who hasn't looked at MTTD to jump in and have a look too. I can't wait to see more schedules and specifications coming through on that platform and the awards. And I'll look forward to seeing you at the conference.
Yes, definitely. Thanks, Selina.
Great. Thanks, Beth.
Thank you for listening to this design dialogue. I hope you have found it full of inspiration and helpful information to take into your design studio. If you like the podcast and want to hear more, consider sharing it or writing a review, as it helps us reach more people, and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. If you would like to unlock the power of effortless studio management and elevate your design business to new heights, please follow the links in our show notes to see how More Time to Design can help you build a better business. Have a great week, and I will see you for our next Design Dialogue.